Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this very event. We're doing a webinar about airline with people, passengers with disability, trying to go through air travel. We'd invite Eric Lip and Pat Pound from Open Doors organization. And we have Anthony Brown from the Houston Airport System. They're going to talk about these various topics with airline traveling. Before we proceed, we will talk about GCPD and some of our missions are through further opportunities for persons with disabilities to enjoy a full and access to lives of independence, productivity, and self-determination. GCPD recommends changes in disability policies and programs in the areas of accessibility, communication, criminal justice, education, emergency preparedness, employment, health and housing, travel, and veterans. The committee also supports a network of local committees on people with disabilities. And we also provide issue awards to be able to promote awareness of people with disabilities and support a collaboration with people with disabilities and also related laws. So maybe you noticed in the chat is not accessible at the moment. So if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A part, and where we can also have people and respond to those questions if possible. We're going to try to get a little bit more general questions with regards to situations with airports or airlines, because if it's specific, then we can be more specialized support, and you'll be able to contact our committee or our local organizations or people with disabilities or open door organizations or ADA coordinators at the airport system of your choice, and with dealing with the Department of Transportation. So now we're going to talk about applying the law to air travel. Understand there's a lot of confusion with that, so we want to make some clarifications with the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, Chapter 2, and that we're going to focus on airline services within the airport system. And so if you have an experience of accessibility issues or discrimination in that situation, you can apply with the ADA coordinator. And then also with the airline itself, that means the air carrier and accessibility department. And sometimes it can be a little bit confusion. For example, when you go to the front desk and talk with the airline people, and if you're in a wheelchair, accessibility to them, and then, so that's an airline, it's not the airport. So sometimes the two can be confused. So that's why we want to clear up some of those misconceptions and how it applies to the law. And the last, we have a new, in 2022, from the Department of Transportation, a new Bill of Rights. It's a 10 different Bill of Rights that are linked with people with disabilities who use an airline travel. And we want to make clear the explanations of the rights with each individual. For example, the right to be treated with dignity and respect. There's a long list of descriptors. And so it's something we want to give them. You can click on that and just see how it applies to more of those rights. And understand that it's a living document, which means it can be changed at any time related with the regulation and rules. And so that can be modified. And so we'll look to that as as we develop those for people with disabilities in their travels. So now we're going to get ready to turn it over to Eric and Pat from Open Door Organization. Take it away.
Go ahead, Eric.
I'll kick it off, Pat.
Pardon?
I'll kick it off. And
yeah, sounds good.
Because my first slide will go right into Pat. I'm Eric Lip. I'm the Executive Director of Open Doors Organization. Our mission is to make goods and services accessible to people with disabilities in travel, tourism, and transportation. We do that through various programs and education. We also have a couple programs that help people with disabilities in aviation. So if you go to the next slide, and I think this is where Pat might want to take over, but what I have here on this slide is a screenshot of our service animal forms portal. And this is where those people who are traveling with service animals, if they're flying on JetBlue, Alaska, Allegiant, or Sun Country, if they fill out the new paperwork one time in our system for those 4 airlines, they never have to bring the paperwork with them to the airport. They never have to fill it out again, just like it used to be before the law changed. So it's a benefit to use our system and fly those airlines because you don't have any trouble with your paperwork. Once you associate your service animal ID with your reservation, it automatically enters in what's called the special service request. And that makes it so when you get to the airport, nobody harasses you about having a service animal. Pat, take it away.
Well, being a blind person that uses a service animal, obviously I like this part a lot. And actually, when I make a reservation, I always check to see if I can fly any of our flights, the airlines that Eric mentioned, because it just solves all the problems. Each airline is doing it a little bit differently outside this system. And so you have to stay in real close communication with your airline, make sure you have your filled out form on you, and lots of things can happen. And I've experienced most of them. So my preference still is that flying with the airlines that we contract with, you know what's going to happen and you know it's done before you leave the house. And that's the way I prefer it. So I'm really happy that we're showing that it can be done this way, and hopefully more airlines will choose to participate in our system.
Yeah, it's interesting because really outside of our 4 carriers, it varies from airline to airline, right, Pat?
Absolutely. Start early, way earlier than you thought you ever needed to. Even if you've flown that carrier before, it may have changed. I've experienced all of that, and it's very stressful to me until I know it's done.
I think our suggestion would be to, if you're not flying on one of the 4 carriers, Alaska, JetBlue, Allegiant, or Sun Country, to always carry the paperwork with you when you fly.
That's the safest thing.
Right, that's the easiest way to do it. And then if it needs to get checked, it could get checked at the airport, right?
Right.
All right, next slide. Pat, you want to add anything to that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Next slide, I'll just explain a little bit about some of the things that Open Doors is working on. This is an example of a landing page for I Love New York, which is an ad campaign for New York. It's a tourism campaign. And they actually have on their front page a place where you can find out accessibility from hundreds of sites throughout the state of New York. The one good thing is that there's a lot of information. The one bad thing is that they were all self-evaluated. So take that, with what it's worth, is that when they're self-evaluated, you can't be guaranteed of anything, but it's certainly a good guide for you, and I recommend calling. Next slide. Here's some general statistics on travelers with disabilities. I'll just throw these out to you guys. So this is what Pat and I use a lot of, because this convinces the airlines that we have 27 million travelers with disabilities and we account for $60 billion, up from 35 billion in 2015.
Wow.
So yeah, we're actually leading the way, right, to the comeback. The leisure traveler, the business traveler isn't back to where it was. It's the leisure traveler that's really driving the market right now. So that's really good. All right, if you need those stats, we can give you these slides. Next slide. This is where we're traveling to. On this slide, it shows all the different cities that we go to, showing that New York, Las Vegas, and Orlando are the top 3. I should add that that is very close to the general population, uh, with New York, Orlando, and Vegas being the same for the general population, only in different order. So, but it shows that people with disabilities, when we do travel, it looks like we're traveling with meaning. We're going places that we haven't been before. So you also have in there underneath Las Vegas, New York, and Orlando, you've got Chicago close by, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., because of all the good nostalgic things there. Los Angeles comes in after that, and Miami. You know, I think we find a lot of people going south towards warmer climate with disabilities, looking at these numbers here. But you know, I think that might be indicative of the general population as well, to some degree, when we're traveling on vacation, going to warm places. Anything you want to add here, Pat?
Nope, looks good.
All right, next one. So this is showing you the way that we're booking travel. This is really interesting because we're booking a lot of travel online. I won't read through the whole slide, but it really shows that people with disabilities are using electronics to not just book, but to find information. Right, Pat?
Yes, including relief areas and, you know, how the airport does stuff.
Like even indoor wayfinding and mapping. So now on your smartphone, right?
Yes.
We've got lots of technologies. There are things that are bringing voice to text for people who are deaf or hard of hearing at the gate area, where your phone could actually hear the announcement and then print it on your iPhone, and it somehow kills the surrounding sound. We saw that kind of work. And there's good things in design for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. They're incorporating in design areas where you can see behind yourself as you're walking through the terminal. Most people wouldn't notice it, but some people would, because they're looking to see what's behind them, and they might notice these design changes. You want to add some tech for people with blind, low vision?
Well, just a thank you to all the airports that subscribe to the IRA Visual Interpreting Services, because it's been great assistance to blind individuals in airports.
Will you tell them what that is, Pat?
Yeah, it's where you can use your phone and dial in a number, and trained agents can see through your phone. And several times I have actually used it from the curb of the airport all the way to my gate, through TSA, et cetera, and the reverse when I got to a strange airport. And it gives you a lot more freedom, because that way, if you're stuck and have to wait, then you can meander around like everybody else does, go shopping for a birthday card or whatever.
You know, Pat, as they start to build the wayfinding into the handheld, which do you prefer? Do you prefer like the wayfinding in the handheld, like a Good Maps, or like in Miami where they have that indoor wayfinding, or do you prefer using IRA, or is it a combination?
Well, I haven't really experienced the other two enough to have an opinion. I usually only like to take my phone, so I don't want another device for sure. So it kind of depends. I will say that since I use IRA for other things, I have a confidence level in the manner in which their agents perform, and that probably builds in a bias toward using IRA.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of new stuff happening at airports too. I'm sure that Anthony's going to talk about sensory rooms, and not just
Yes.
rooms, but creating sensory areas throughout the airport so that there's not just one space, because terminals are big and people are constantly moving. It's very fluid. So there's lots of technology going on there. I'll take the next slide. The important thing here is on the left at the top, we travel travel companies. So we're using travel agents as well. I think it shows that people with disabilities can still count on travel agents to some degree, but it also shows that we're using the web. Everybody's using the web. So if a website isn't accessible, then they don't realize that they're losing travelers with disabilities. If your website's not accessible, then someone who's blind or low vision who has a mobility disability and can't, navigate your website just won't show up. And you may never know that because your website and your technology is not accessible. But it's a really important thing for us. All right, next one. This in our study shows everything that we're doing when we travel. So I'm sure some of you can see all of this. This shows exactly, we give this to businesses so that they know what people with disabilities are doing when they travel. As you can see, we're eating out at restaurants. And that's a really big deal because restaurants really could use the income, and we're eating out, we're spending like $25, $30 a meal just on ourselves alone. But eating out, 70% of us eating out shows that if your restaurant's accessible when we're traveling, you should let us know because we're coming. And that's what we like to do, is eat out just like everybody else in the world. And we're visiting family and friends. It's a lot of visiting, right? Because travel, again, as we showed earlier, we're going to meaningful places and doing meaningful travel. And a lot of that is because it's difficult to travel. So a couple of the difficulty things traveling are getting through the TSA. There's a program, I don't know if anybody knows about it. It's called TSA Cares. And you can plan your trip through TSA by calling TSA Cares. It's a phone number ahead of time to travel. And if you think you're going to have any difficulty at the checkpoint, it doesn't matter your disability. You don't even have to talk about your disability. All you have to do is call that number and they'll set up a way for you to get through security inconspicuously, without having to, identify yourself in a busy setting or anything. So TSA Cares is super popular. Also, something to know is at the checkpoints, if you feel like you're being discriminated against, there is somebody called a PSS, Passenger Service Specialist, and they are specially trained to help people with disabilities at the checkpoints. Like the airline has the CRO, the TSA has the PSS. And right now, everybody should be excited to know that we have a working group at the TSA because we are looking at accessibility in the TSA at the checkpoints, down to design of the checkpoints, including how information is conveyed. So I'm really excited about the project. We have about 15 people that represent different disabilities, different people throughout the United States on the committee. I'm sure some of you know some of the people on there, but it's a really great thing at the TSA. And then the other thing is, next slide. Go to the one more slide. I'll go back to that one in a minute, but this one is the last one I want to talk about. This is damage to our chairs. I know this is a huge topic, and somebody already asked in the chat, and I haven't looked back in for questions and answers about traveling with your chair. Somebody asked about how they're being trained. Crazy enough, when I started Open Doors 24 years ago, my scooter broke. And there was, they just wanted to pay me back. And I really didn't want the money. I really just wanted my scooter back to get on with my life. But they gave me the money and I figured out how to fix it myself. And then I brought all the airlines into one of our meetings and I said, how can we do better at this? And they never even knew how many chairs they were breaking. They weren't keeping track. So we pushed the DOT to start tracking those numbers, which they did. So now we know. So we break about 1.8% of all chairs we carry. I know that sounds low. I know that we think it's 30, 40, 50, 60%, but these are government numbers. I'm not making these up. These are FOIA. They're on the DOJ, on the DOT's website, and it's 1.8%. The difference is that 1.8%, the problem is that every chair has a face behind it. So we don't want to look at the number. We want to look at the actual what we're doing. And you asked about training. We are like the only people who do training. We formed a global repair group out of what I told you about the airlines, meeting with them privately so that we could do repairs from one area so that it would be done quicker. And the airlines, you didn't have to talk to them. Now you just talk to global repair if your chair is damaged, and we take you through the process of fixing it because airlines aren't in the repair and replacement. All right. But I want to also state this. Somebody asked, can you take electric wheelchairs in planes yet? You cannot take them inside of the plane. In fact, some airlines are cracking down on you taking them underneath the plane as well. because they never realized that you can't tip a chair on its side and stow it on its side because they're not made to do that. So the real problem here is that wheelchairs, the manufacturers and the insurance companies, they don't manufacture wheelchairs to fly, and the airplanes are not made to carry them. So you can fly with an electric chair by all means. Are you going to be able to strap down inside the aircraft? Someday, but you're talking about 10 to 20 years from now. You'll have a bathroom inside the aircraft before you'll be able to transfer and sit in a seat in your own chair. Because of there's so many chairs that are made and they're not made to fly. They don't crash test the same way in a bus or a train. People are always like, well, they do it in a bus and da-da-da. An airplane is made of different materials. And to really tie down inside the cabin is going to be very expensive. And it's a long, long process of development and re-engineering the aircraft. It's not like you can just tie down like you see on TV and some of these ads. They're giving a little bit of false hope. We're really close to the industry, and I can tell you that we're still 10 to 20 years from tying down inside. So what you want to do is make it so that if you want to travel with your power chair, it's less likely to get damaged. And that is bringing things to cover it, taking parts in the plane like your joystick. I know you have those zip ties on your joysticks right now. Those were given to you by the manufacturer, and those aren't good to travel because we need to take the joysticks off. Why don't they use Velcro or reusable zip ties? But they don't. So you have to cut those yourselves, buy your own Velcro because you want to take your joystick into the cabin. Look at the left chart. So of the 1.8%, this is how many we break. On the left, it shows you the percentage of money. So global repair, our revenue, 50% of it is from high-end chairs. But look, that's only 16% of the claims. So those of you in high-end chairs, it really takes some extra effort to travel with your chair safely, communicate with the manufacturer, with the airline, get there early and try to take off as much as you can. Like your seat cushion should never go underneath the aircraft. Right now, I'm telling you this, they do not tie your chairs down in the aircraft. Chairs are not tied down underneath. So when you land and when you take off, when you hit the ground, when you land, everything inside the hold goes up. So your chair is smashing up against the bottom of the aircraft and things are moving because we don't tie things down in the belly of the aircrafts. So go into knowing that. So when they have to store your chair on its side, when I train the ground handlers, here's how I train them. My first thing I say is, does anybody put chairs on their side? Everybody raises their hand. And then I said, all right, we're going to do an example. We're going to run out to the parking lot right now, and I'm going to tip somebody's car on its side just for 10 seconds. We're just going to tip it on its side. And everybody looks at you like, right? Well, your chair isn't made to tip over either. Your car isn't. You tip it on its side for 1 second, it's scratching it, right? It's going to break. You're going to have a claim. That's the way it is. So you really have to work with your manufacturer and your DME on how to transport your chair safest in the aircraft because the airlines don't have the equipment to move them. And for them, it's about money. And they're starting to invest in things, but the problem is always going to be this. They can put whatever they want to lift them, to do them. They're not tying them down. That's a major problem. And the other two problems are the insurance companies, right? They don't make them to fly. They don't even make them for you to leave your house in, right? And the other one is the airplane manufacturers. They have to build a reinforced floor and a shoulder harness system to make it safe. So that kind of answers that one. I know that Anthony will talk about the airport. Pat, you want to add anything?
No, I think you're doing great.
Next slide. I think that was that might be one of my last slides right there. Oh, and now we have the tag.org where you can go out to one of the websites we developed. You can fill out information about your wheelchair and we will email you an indestructible tag that you can put on your wheelchair that talks about how to pack it to go to fly. I know the airport's going to cover all this because there's so many good things going on in airports. The design that's going on is great, and I can't wait for you guys to hear from Anthony. I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I will go out now to the Q&A and answer those. If anybody has any questions for me at the time, I'm also on the governing body of the TSA. So I represent diversity, equity, and inclusion on what's called the ASAC, Aviation Security Advisory Committee. And if you want to give me any input from the TSA, we're in the last month of putting together our recommendations for upgrading the TSA checkpoints. So be sure to give me that. And if you have anything about airports that you travel in Texas, I'm happy to answer those too. I think that we're good on time. And Pat, if you want to add anything,
I might just mention that on the Open Doors site under consumer, I wrote an article because I did a lot of training about flying as a blind person during COVID via Zoom. So I finally wrote it in as an article. So of course, it's just my notions of my hacks, but as we all swap hacks, then we all learn from one another. So feel free to enjoy that as you wish.
next slide. I think that might be my last. That's our segue into our next speaker, and I'll go out and answer some of your questions.
Well, I want to say how much I enjoyed all of your presentations and all of the information that has been provided. I'm so excited to be a part of our webinar here today and to hear all of the great things that, again, are going on, all of the statistics. And I think the encouraging news is that we in airports are very in tune to making sure that our airports are becoming more accessible every day. From the TSA to its TSA Cares programs to all of the different types of services that are provided to travelers. It's a very exciting time. I also think because we have an FAA and heading over the Civil Rights Division, again, a person who is very in tune because they themselves have challenges. And they basically mandated that at FAA, disability-related issues have been pushed to the forefront. I've been in, want you to know, I've been in many meetings on nationwide issues with FAA, and whether it be Title VI or ADA, the FAA has put a whole new level of resource and a whole new level of commitment to making sure that there is accessible travel all across our country. And it is a priority of theirs. It's a priority here at Houston Airports. We are doing a number of things and making a number of improvements. And so I'm very excited about that. And we can go to the first slide. Some of the things have already been talked about, and I'm not going to belabor the ones that have been talked about. But again, sunflower lanyards and hidden disability sunflowers, one of the programs that we have here at the Houston Airport that we're very proud of. Every day we mail out sunflower lanyards to those who are requesting them. They're available at our customer service desk because it's important that we are able to identify those people who have hidden disabilities and can provide them with the level of service that they need. Error wayfinding, again, just an awesome tool. It has made our airport so much more negotiable. And our airport is one of the more difficult airports at Bush to negotiate, in that it's not sort of laid out in a sort of logical way. It has different wings that come off of some of the main thoroughfares. And but one of the things I want to say is that we have really been improving to make sure that there is a clear path for all of our, every traveler to have, so that there are no, again, barriers that anybody should face in our airports. We're very cognizant of that. But we also provide our airport familiarization tours, where you can actually request from us that you want to come out. It can be one individual, and we also do it for groups, where you can come out and we'll take you on a tour. And if you have, for example, you're going to fly maybe to our airport for the first time, and you have some idea of where your gate is going to be, or you just want to come out and be able to negotiate throughout the different areas of the airport, from gates to security checkpoints to baggage claim to other types of amenities that we have, whether they be restaurants or any other things. You can come out and really get a good heads up on what's going on at the airport. And then accessible facilities. It's very important to us that all of our facilities are accessible, and we put in a lot of effort and a lot of money to make sure that our facilities are accessible. And we can go on to the next slide. And some of those things that we've done include these types of accessibility items: accessible seating. We have closed captioning and audio descriptions. We have Braille signage. On our website, we have accessible. We have Recite Me, and that is for people who are hearing challenged and visually challenged. And then we have, again, as we just talked about, clear walking paths. And we also have, as we go forward, we're trying to make sure that we have removed our barriers. We participate fully in the TDLR, which is the Texas Department of Licensing and Registration. They have an accessible barriers program. And under that program, we make sure that all of our projects are registered with the TDLR. The TDLR requires that it starts early in the process at the design phase. Each design is monitored and reviewed for accessibility. TDLR requires a RAS, a registered accessibility specialist, to review the plans and make sure that the plans themselves meet clear TDLR standards, which are basically based on ADA standards, though not totally synonymous, but in most instances they are. And so what we do is, and what I do on a daily basis, is I assign RASs to do inspections. We inspect at the, again, design phase, then throughout in construction. If there are any issues that come up, I'll get a call and we'll send someone out from our team to review the construction and give advice in regard to accessibility. And then finally, once the construction is completed, we don't give out any I guess you would say, we stop there and say, let's inspect before you can open. You get no, you can't open one day unless there is clear RAS approval for accessibility. And so that's one of the great things that we also have. I also want to say that one of the things we're doing too is we're looking at all of our different modes of travel here, because our walkways, our garages, we're going through and doing an assessment of accessibility for all of those differing methods. We're looking at all of our methods of travel, whether it be on our SkyTrain, whether it be on our tram, which is underneath, whether it be on our buses that go to our rental-car facilities. All of that, we are doing an assessment to make sure that our airport is as accessible as possible. Next slide. And we talked about the, again, sunflower lanyards. And again, as it says, globally, 1 of 6 of us live with a disability. And that is approximately 1.3 billion people. And again, this shows you an example on this slide of what a hidden disabilities lanyard looks like. We also are showing the I support sunflower buttons that our service people and people who are on the front line wear, so that individuals who again may have a hidden disability know that these are people that they can contact and that have been trained on how to deal with people with disabilities. Next slide. And we've also, again, talked earlier about error wayfinding. Again, it's an incredible tool. You take out your cell phone, you connect, and again, you can be led via your cell phone throughout our airport and in wayfinding, and that way, you know where you are at any point in time, and you can be assisted. Next slide. Service animals. We recently hosted Canine Companions. And here we had, with Canine Companions, we had several service animals that were fully trained and had years of experience. And then we had some newbies. And it was very interesting to watch the level of experience that the fully trained service animals had. They were calm, they were leading, they were reacting and very proactive. And then when you watch the newbies, they were sort of looking at the other very well trained service animals. You can see that they were learning. And it was a great day. And we partnered with Canine Companions with our service animals. Our SARAs are located in each of our terminals. And we visited the SARAs. We also went out on the tarmac and again, let the service animals become familiar with airplane noise and jet noise, which is again, one of the major issues that they have to overcome is fear of loud noises and loud airplanes. And so we also went through all of the different areas, whether it was upstairs, downstairs, again, all of the different vehicles for travel for us, our SkyTrain, our lower level tram. So it was just a wonderful day of assisting in the training of service animals. And also for us to highlight, we had so many people that stopped us and commented on the fact that they really liked seeing so many service animals in the airport. And it really shows you how I think the public is so aware of, again, the challenges of travel. And that, again, and also them trying to be as helpful as they can be. Next slide. And we talked about our airport familiarization tours. How do I request a tour? Requesting a tour is easy. Just go to any of our websites and under our accessibility section, you will see that you can just email me as the ABA coordinator under HAS_accessibility@houstontex.gov, and we'll be delighted to put together a tour for you. One of the things, of course, we'll need to know is what some of the challenges are and what are you looking for out of your experience, and we will tailor an experience to meet your needs. Next slide. And we have our nursing rooms, and this is one of our I have trouble saying that, but lactation pods, and these are located throughout the airports. We have them in each terminal, so that mothers and mothers to be can again have a safe place where they can go with their children. And again, they're located in each of our locations, located in each terminal. Next, we also have basically spaces that are interior spaces in the airport that are used for nursing. And here you see a picture of one of our nursing rooms. You see where, again, it's very comfortable, very well organized, and provides everything that a mother and child would need. Okay. Next, we also have companion care changing rooms. And companion care changing rooms, again, are located throughout the airport and throughout our terminals. And we're gonna go to our next slide. And you see here the interior of our companion care. All of them are kept extremely clean. As you can see, the different types of features that we have. Again, when you're looking at the beds, when you're looking at, again, the sink and how accessible it is, and mirrors. Again, we're very proud of our companion care changing rooms. And this is a picture of one of our rooms at Hadi Airport. Next slide. Here we have a newly installed mobile sensory station, and that sensory station is located in Terminal A North and located within our mother's room. We are also looking at having, this is our first, so we're very proud of it. We're also have in the works in 2024 more mobile sensory stations. And again, the whole concept of our mobile sensory station is to have the differing experiences that help calm, whether it be, as you can see in this instance, it's water, it's sound, differing surfaces within the room, some of them soft surfaces, some of them having different tactile experiences for children and others, so that it provides the calming sensory experience that can be needed, that is needed. We're also looking at right now spaces, not just inside, but also there's different areas of our airport where it's not high traffic, that we believe we can place sensory stations, making them very accessible to our travelers, and that will allow us to have them at more locations. So that is also something that's in the works. All right, next slide. This is, again, our terminal setup, and you can see that what happens is our terminals here at Intercontinental, our number are notated from A, B, C, D, and E terminals. And they're sort of linear, and in between them, you will note that there are parking garages. And so this, the purpose of this diagram is to show you how our airport is set up, just in case you've never visited our airport and you've never been on our website. You can see how our terminals are set up, and each one of these terminals is connected by a SkyTrain, and that SkyTrain runs along the top via monorail type, and it's very accessible for anyone to travel. And you can go very quickly from Terminal A, which is on your left, all the way to Terminal E. And it's one of the quickest ways to negotiate our airport. Again, very accessible for all travelers. Next slide. Next, and this has somewhat been mentioned, ADA complaint handling. As you can see, for us in Houston Airport, if you have a complaint, it's going to be routed to me as the ADA coordinator. That complaint can be in regard to any of our airport facilities, airport parking, concessions, airport vendors, whether there's a staff member that caused the problem, or whether there's communications that was an issue. Also, passengers can make a ADA complaint to a CRO. That can be through check-in and gate agents. It can be a ticketing. It can be about wheelchair services. It can be about the check-in kiosk, or it can be an in-flight experience. I handle a number of complaints on a daily and weekly basis. Most of our complaints that we get center around wheelchair service. Either the wheelchair service may have been a little late getting to the gate, or either there was some handling of luggage or things of that nature. Most of the time, it is something that we directly work with the airport on reaching a resolution to. And so also, as has been discussed, I think a little earlier, you can also make a direct complaint with the U.S. Department of Transportation if your complaint is not being handled in a manner that you think is providing you the relief and satisfaction that you need. So that's the ADA complaint handling in airports. It can either come to me as the ADA coordinator, it can go to the airlines through their complaint resolution officer, or it can be made directly with the U.S. Department of Transportation. And so, again, I know that's a lot of different areas, and
I am curious about something, if I may interrupt. What about real-time situations that pop up at the airport? Is there someone that can actually help? I mean, do you have to send it off, or how does that work?
that's a great question. We have customer service representatives throughout our airport, and we also have, again, customer service desks throughout our airport. So whenever you're having any travel experience or issue, you can go to a customer service desk. Our customer service representatives receive ADA training. They know how to reach me. They also know about these complaint procedures, and they are empowered to help any traveler with any related complaint, with any related accessibility complaints. Great question.
That's so good. Thank you.
Anthony, if I might, I wanted to thank you for something that I know Houston did, and I think it's one of the few airports that has done an audit of the condition and the cleanliness of their service animal relief areas. And that was such a wonderful, proactive thing to do. And unfortunately, I haven't come to Houston since then, but I'm ready.
Well, we're very proud. We have a number of very new service animal relief areas that are state of the art. I can tell you from visiting them many times, and I do go throughout our airport on a regular basis to our SARAs and make sure that they are clean, make sure that there's no issues with them. They have very wide, accessible entrances. They have large paths and spaces for the animals to relieve themselves, and you can have multiple animals and them be accommodated without any issue. So we're very proud of that. And we're also looking to renovate a couple of service animal relief areas outside. That's in our plan also that we have at each airport. So
I have another question, if I may.
Sure.
This is, since we have the service animals, what about an open policy now with, in regards to emotional support animals? For, you know, if they're not a service animal per se, how would that work? You know, what is the policy in regards to an emotional support animal?
well, right now, again, there's been a lot of, I guess you would say, concern because the FAA has changed the regulation. And now it, again, it has to be a trained service animal. And so where you had all types of pets or different types of species that were emotional support, again, that has been scaled back and that's no longer allowed at the airport. You need to have again, trained and service animal.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions or anybody or? I do have other questions, if I may, if we have time. One of the things that I'm really interested in learning more about is the travel time between some locations of the airport. And the airport, you know, like, for example, like some of the riders, you know, they do Uber, or they do Lyft, and, you know, getting the rideshare program that they have. Sometimes they're really far and they've got to park way on the other side. How can they be able to get to the airport in a timely manner if they don't know how to access, you know, or if they don't even know where to drop them off, or for people that have disabilities? How does that work?
Well, again, with Uber and Lyft, we have areas for drop off, and our areas are very accessible. That's also something that the traveler needs to make sure that their Uber and Lyft driver are aware at the time that they schedule that travel, and the Uber and Lyft driver are aware of the disability, because again, accessible travel is available.
Wonderful. Well, if we don't have any more questions, I'll go ahead and start to wrap this meeting up with any other questions. If anyone has anything else they want to share or ask. Looks like we're done. We're going to wrap this up. So thank you so much to all of our presenters for coming here today. We learned a lot, including myself. I really am grateful to have all of you here today. This presentation will be posted on our webpage, and we'll have the recording as well, the PowerPoint presentation and slides. So all that will be included in the questions and answers. So if anyone has anything that they didn't get, they can always look there. Thank you so much for showing up here at this presentation.
Thank you.